this is a segment from Meet the Press with your friend and mine, and I am being facetious when I say that, Ted Cruz. I am praying, even though I hate Donald Trump's ass, but I am praying that Donald Trump kicks his ass on Tuesday in Texas to get his dumb ass, his racist ass, which they're both racist, so what can I say, out of the race. But I am so tired of him being unapologetic about everything that it just makes me sick. I started repeating his own talking points before he does, every time they ask him a question. But anyway, here's Chuck Todd's interview with him.
Joining me now is Senator Ted Cruz of Texas, who comes to us this morning from one of his must-do-well states in Springdale, Arkansas. Senator Cruz, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Chuck, good morning. Good to be with you.
Well, let's set the expectations straight up. If you don't win Texas, can you stay in this race?
Nope.
Well, I think we're going to do very well in Texas, and I think Super Tuesday could well be the most important day of the entire primary season. We are campaigning all across Super Tuesday, and at this point, the facts are clear that there is only one candidate who has beaten and who can beat Donald Trump. And in Super Tuesday, we are neck and neck with Donald across Super Tuesday. We're going to do very well in Texas.
Yeah, and there's only been one candidate that lied in the Iowa caucus and sent out phony voting materials in order to get his numbers pumped up, and that is Rafael Cruz.
We are fighting hard to beat him across the country, and I will say to the 65% of Republicans who recognize Donald Trump is not the best candidate to go head-to-head with Hillary Clinton, the only way to beat him is for us to come together and unite, and our campaign is the only one that can beat Donald, so I ask for your support on Super Tuesday.
Let me ask you this. Is the fairest way to decide who the chief challenger is to Trump is the person who's in second place in delegates come Wednesday morning between yourself and Marco Rubio?
Listen, there's no doubt we're likely to come out of Super Tuesday with a big difference in delegates. I think it is likely that you'll see Donald Trump has a whole bunch of delegates. I think it's likely that we'll have a whole bunch of delegates.
You think you'll be second?
I think there's going to be a big drop-off between Donald and me and the rest of the field. Right now, Donald and I are 1 and 2 in delegates. Not right now, Donald and I are 1 and 2 in the popular vote.
Okay.
You know, as you know, historically, no one has ever won the nomination in modern times without winning one of the first 3 states, Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina. Donald and I are the only 2 who have done that.
Motherfucker, you didn't win Iowa, you cheating asshole.
Let me ask you this. You released summary pages of your tax returns. So did Marco Rubio. And you said the only reason you released summary pages is because Marco Rubio released summary pages. Why should Donald Trump, how are you forcing Donald Trump to release his tax return if you're only releasing the first 2 pages?
Well, listen, I've released 9 years of tax returns. And by the way, the first 5 years have everything. The last 4 have summary pages. I've got 9 years of tax returns. Donald Trump has not released so much as a paperclip. And Donald needs to release his taxes. You know, Mitt Romney this week.
So will you be happy if he just does summary pages? Will you be happy if he just does summary pages?
Look, it would be a very positive step in the right direction. I would be thrilled if he releases the whole thing. I'm happy to release everything. I've released, for 5 years, I've released everything. We just matched what the opponents did for the last 4 years. But the critical point, Chuck, as Mitt Romney observed, the fact that Donald seems terrified to release his taxes suggests that there's a bombshell there. And it's natural to wonder, well, what is it that he's hiding in his taxes?
This guy reminds me of Joe McCarthy so goddamn much. It makes me quake in my shoes. He loves throwing out any bullshit line that he can think of as, and he says it's suggested, or well, I don't know, but maybe. He's full of shit. And he's operating on fumes. Now, I swear to God, if he would just lose Texas so we could get his dumbass out of the race, it would do me, and again, I'm for Bernie, so much. You know, I would party if this guy gets kicked out of the race after Super Tuesday.
Maybe it's that Donald Trump doesn't earn nearly as much as he has so loudly told everyone. Maybe he's not as rich as he says he is. Who knows? Maybe it's the case that Mitt Romney is richer than Donald Trump. he could answer that by releasing his taxes. On the other hand, maybe it's the case that he has given large sums of money to left-wing groups like Planned Parenthood. You know, he praises Planned Parenthood in the debates over and over again.
That's 5 maybes that he's thrown in here already. You can keep count for the rest of them for yourself.
And he's been a big financial supporter of that. All of those questions Donald can put to rest. Or, you know, Chuck, maybe it is the case that Donald, there have been multiple media reports about
6.
Donald's business dealings with the mob, with the mafia. Maybe his taxes
7.
show those business dealings are a lot more extensive than has been reported. Regardless
let me
of what
stop
the
you. Wait a minute,
bombshell
Senator
is.
Cruz. Let me stop you there. That's openly speculative. You have any facts to support that Donald Trump has mob
Sure.
ties?
ABC, CNN, multiple news reports have reported about his business dealings with, for example, S&A Construction, which was owned by Fat Tony Salerno, who is a mobster who is in jail. It is owned by 2 of the major New York crime families, and that has been reported in multiple media outlets.
Hopefully, the mob, and for those of you who don't know it, yes, the mob does exist. Hopefully, they will get pissed off with their names being mentioned by this asshole, and he will have an accident.
You know, you're going to have Donald on the show later today. You ought to ask him, Donald, have you written a check to Planned Parenthood? If so, how much and when? I mean, that's a question that Donald ought to answer. We don't know what it is that he's hiding in those tax returns, but I can promise you this. If he's the nominee come September, October, every day on the news will be about those tax returns, about whatever the bombshell is, and Republican primary voters deserve to know before the nomination, not after, because you better believe Hillary Clinton and the media are going to go to town on it, and the primary voters should be able to vet all of us.
Let me ask you something Rush Limbaugh said earlier this week about your candidacy. He said, Ted Cruz has fought these guys every day that he's been in Washington, and for a lot of reasons, that doesn't register. Basically, it sounds like he was almost lamenting it, but the fact is, Donald Trump stole your outsider brand. Super Tuesday was supposed to be the day you were going to be solidifying your status as the front runner, and it's not turning out that way. How did Trump steal your outsider brand?
Well, listen, I think Super Tuesday will continue to narrow the field. The first 4 states narrowed the field down from 17 candidates to a much smaller field. I think Super Tuesday, we will effectively have 2 candidates coming out of it that have a viable path, that have enough delegates to have a shot at winning. And head-to-head with Donald Trump, I beat Donald by 16 points, 56-40. And, you know, we really saw this on the debate last week. We saw a contrast between Washington deal makers. And this is how we've gotten in the mess we're in now, is Republicans who cut deals with Democrats, grow the debt, grow government, and give away our constitutional rights. A contrast between deal makers and a principled constitutional conservative. You know, Chuck, it was striking when Donald Trump said, Ted, you got to be willing to compromise on the Supreme Court. You got to be willing to compromise on religious liberty. Let me tell you, I will not compromise away your religious liberty rights. I will not compromise away your Second Amendment. And Donald Trump is telling us, if he's president, he'll cut a deal with Harry Reid and Chuck Schumer and give away your constitutional rights. That's how we got in this.
Let me end where we began. If you are third in delegates Wednesday morning, do you reassess your candidacy?
Well, listen, I don't intend to be third in delegates. I don't believe I am. I think that may be a question you'll have to pose to other candidates. But I will say what we saw on the last week was in the seminal battle on amnesty, when I was leading the fight against the Rubio-Schumer Gang of 8 amnesty bill, and we defeated the Gang of 8 amnesty bill, Donald Trump was funding the Gang of 8. He had given over $50,000 to 5 of the 8 members of the Gang of 8. You cannot lead on illegal immigration if you spent 4 decades supporting open border Democrats, and if you've been hiring illegal immigrants as Donald Trump has been doing.
This mealy-mouthed motherfucker didn't answer the question. He didn't answer the question. And on top of that, number 2, he didn't defeat the legislation because he's a senator. He voted against it, but it passed in the Senate. Where it got killed was in the House. Now, you can say what you want, but as far as I know, he's not a House of Representative member. So yeah, he did talk to them, and he quote unquote rallied the House around defeating the legislation. Actually, what happened was they didn't even bring it up, so there wasn't even a vote on it. It got stuck in committee until after the session ended. So that was bullshit. And number three, fucking Donald Trump is giving this asshole money. So, you know, he's got a lot of balls talking about the money that Donald Trump's giving out, especially when he took money from Donald Trump. This guy is a fucking hypocrite. He almost makes me think he's the Antichrist.
All right, Senator Ted Cruz, I got to leave it there. Republican for...
Fuck you, Ted Cruz.